if I lend out money, it's money that I am no longer anticipating on receiving back.
Your boy's a loser. It clearly sounds like y'all were not on the same page. In my opinion, a good partner would recognize that the money means a lot to you, and I wouldn't see it as something to, oh, I want my share of the pot too.
Hello,
and welcome back to the Two Cents Podcast. I'm Hannah Williams.
And I'm James Daniels.
And today we are back for a one-on-one episode. We are also at the Capital One Café in Philly. If you remember the last time we talked to y'all, we were moving.
Yeah, and we definitely did the move. So far, Philly has been, amazing besides a little bit of rain, but that's understandable.
It feels like we moved to Seattle.
Yeah.
A little bit of rain is an understatement.
But it's good, though.
It has been a lot of fun.
It's good for all the greenery that's not present around here.
I was going to say, what greenery? Yeah. This is not a criticism of Philly. We are actually having a blast. We're thinking about doing an episode breaking down, how much everything has cost us, the move, what our Airbnb was. We also had some pretty major unexpected costs there. Our dogs went through a little bit of a rough patch, and that was quite an expensive vet bill.
Yeah. But, they're through it now, so... let's just hope that they stay that way.
Let's just hope. I also want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Capital One Café. Thank you so much to them for allowing us to film in this amazing community space. Since we moved, we do not have a studio anymore. We also have moved out of our official studio. So no more, regular podcast background that we've had in the past. So we've been navigating that. It's been a little tricky, but we're grateful to Capital One Café for letting us film here. And quick shout out to them as the sponsor of this week's episode. If you would like to redeem a free handcrafted beverage, they've got everything. They've got lattes, like caffeine, non-caffeinated. One of my favorites is the matcha lemonade. James, what's your favorite?
The caramel latte, but I'm pretty basic though.
So if you want to try any of these handcrafted beverages, use the link in the description below and come check it out. It's a great cafe. If you want to do some work here, if you want to meet with some friends and talk about money, you might also see us there, because apparently people were watching our live while we were in the cafe doing the live, and then they came and said hi to us after we were done, which is so funny.
Yeah, which is cool too though. Like I definitely like that. It means that people in the area are definitely watching. So we appreciate the watch.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for y'all tuning in. Hopefully this will be a fun episode. It's not an interview, but we wanted to talk about some financial topics we've seen recently, starting with Black Mirror. What does Black Mirror have to do with finances, James?
Well, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but spoiler alert. If you haven't seen, what was it, the first episode?
First episode of the newest season, season 7.
Yeah, the first episode, it had a really good topic behind it, right? So say your loved one, suffers a traumatic brain injury and they're legally brain dead. And now you have to figure out how to afford being able to keep them alive. But keeping them alive means that you're pretty much a part of a streaming service. That's pretty much what it is. It was a subscription service to keep her alive.
Yeah.
The issues that we have with the episode was more so because we have a background and, talking about salaries,
how much they make.
Yeah. So the fact that she was a teacher, which was completely understandable, it's a lot harder to afford things as a public school teacher. But he was an iron worker.
They kept mentioning money troubles, that basically the streaming service that his wife was on that saved her life kept getting more expensive. And they had to increase their membership from standard to plus to pro, because it basically turned out that she was reading ads on the free version. Like, as a human, she was reading ads.
Well, it wasn't free. So just to give a breakdown, the standard version was $300 a month.
Yeah.
Which is achievable. In today's market, a lot of us are living paycheck to paycheck. So it's pretty understandable as to why that was a little bit more difficult to pay for. But at the same time, this was a older married couple with no kids. I'm pretty sure they owned their home. If not, they were renting, So they didn't really have any extra finances that they brought up in the show. Mm-hmm. But then the pro version, which was an additional $500. So therefore, in order to have the best experience with this subscription service, you would need to be paying an extra $1,800 a month.
Insane.
Yeah. But the baseline to keep her alive was $300. Mm-hmm. Now, the show really emphasized in the beginning their struggles with money for paying for just the standard version. like I said, an extra $300 a month. She was a public school teacher and he was an iron worker with, they stated it in the show, 10 plus years of
Right.
working for that company.
They make bank. Iron workers make bank, especially if you're a union iron worker. And they showed his workplace. It kind of looked like he was working on a ship rig
Yeah,
or even like an oil
yeah, it
rig.
looked like he was like in a shipyard or something. So I know that he was making some pretty decent money.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the issue in the show came when the wife, she began involuntarily doing ad reads, and that put her in jeopardy of being fired
Mm-hmm.
because she was given unsolicited advice,
Mm-hmm.
inappropriate advice at school,
Yeah.
just based on the ads that were being forcefully pushed through her. So they needed to upgrade, right? They
Mm-hmm.
needed to upgrade to that additional $500 so that they can get the plus version.
Right.
Um, but they really struggled to get that plus version. And my biggest gripe with the show was how hard it was for them to afford. I mean, they showed him working overtime after overtime
Right.
after overtime,
Week after week, day
week
after
after
day,
week
like a full month of
to
overtime.
afford the standard version.
That didn't make sense to me.
Exactly. Exactly. And that was my issue with the show. Other than that, Black Mirror, do your thing, you know.
We really could not get past this whole financial salary
Yeah.
bit, which is why we wanted to talk about it because, like you said, like she was a public school teacher. That makes sense that they would be struggling. But his salary, like I just didn't understand it. And like you said, they didn't have kids. It looked like they owned their house. I feel like there were other things they could have done besides him working back to back overtime. And then eventually he turned to something that was a lot more dangerous and
Yeah,
risky.
definitely a
We
lot.
won't give you any spoilers if you want to see the episode. I don't think we've spoiled it at this
Yeah,
point.
definitely
But
not.
it was definitely one of those things where I wish we had talked to the writers and told them, like, this would make sense if they were both teachers.
Yeah, or he was a museum worker
Or a musician.
or musician, but like something that would justify him really putting forth that effort
Mm-hmm.
to eventually get to the point that he did,
Mm-hmm.
in order to justify the cost. That was the biggest thing, is just the pay. Honestly,
Right.
just the pay.
And another question that this brought up for me was, why did they do it if they knew they couldn't afford it to begin with? It's kind of like this age-old advice, right? Don't buy anything that you can't afford. That's what they tell people
Right.
to do on credit cards. Don't buy it, even if you can, even if you have the credit, don't buy it if you can't afford it. And I understand he was in a really tricky situation where he would lose his wife. I think many of us would also tell ourselves that we could afford it. But in the end, what ended up happening was arguably more tragic. I don't want to give spoilers, but their lives really fall apart.
Yeah.
And it makes me think, yes, this would have been a really tough ethical and moral decision, but I think they should have just let nature happen because he would have had his money, he would have had his job, they would have had their savings, and he could pick up his life and keep carrying on. But that's not what we saw
Yeah, I
happen.
think that's the biggest thing that this season of Black Mirror has really harped on, is the morality portion.
Mm-hmm.
You as an individual with a loved one, if your loved one sustains a terrible injury in which it could be the end of their life, what would you do and how far would you go to make sure that they can live a manageable life? Not just live, but live a successful life, to where they can achieve all the things that they want to.
Mm-hmm.
What would you sacrifice for that?
I mean, I can say I would sacrifice a lot for you if you were in that position.
Same.
So I don't blame them for what they did. It's just really interesting, the conversation and the realities and the
Yeah.
outcomes.
Yeah, that definitely the outcomes.
So super interesting. And if you haven't watched Black Mirror yet, definitely go check it out and let us know your 2 cents in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you all have to say about this episode because, as you can tell, we were very intrigued. But with that, we want to introduce a new segment that we thought would be really fun, where we would react to Reddit stories. And hopefully in the future, y'all will send us your stories and your concerns so we can react to yours directly. But we're going to start with Reddit stories, particularly couples dealing with issues with their finances. And we also have one story that we want to cover related to work and the intersection of, legislation, life, and work. I think we should start with that one because the finance relationship couples questions are pretty juicy and we might get into it.
Ooh, looking
right.
forward to it.
So I'm going to go ahead and read the story to all of you so that you understand what's going on, and then we're going to react to it. I'm newly pregnant, 4.5 weeks along, and planning to disclose to HR around 12 weeks, then to my wider team around 7 months, following what others have done at my workplace in Massachusetts. We get 12 weeks of maternity leave total. I've already started running into comments that assume I might not come back after leave, despite making it clear that financially and personally, I absolutely will. This issue came up again recently when a senior woman extended her leave and ultimately quit, which people are now using as a reference point. But in my case, my partner works a minimum wage contract job with no benefits. We're on my insurance, and my bonus nearly matches his annual income. Leaving is just not an option for us, and more importantly, I don't want to. So here's my dilemma. Is there a graceful, non weird way to signal early on that I am 100% planning to come back? I don't want to be mommy tracked or left out of long term planning because of assumptions. Has anyone navigated this well?
I'll give my 2 cents on that, but honestly, I'm not a
As a
woman.
woman.
Yeah, not a woman, nor have I ever been a mother.
Right.
So
But you have been a father.
right. So
You are a father.
I'll let you take the lead on that, and then I'll give my 2 cents afterwards.
So I've never been pregnant at work. I've never had to take maternity leave. So just take my 2 cents with that. But I do know that you have rights at work and that there are protections for pregnant mothers. And it seems like this isn't necessarily discrimination, but it's getting really close to it. You shouldn't have to deal with people questioning how committed you are to the job, especially if they're not your manager. Who are they to say anything like that?
Right.
So I would say speak with your management. If there are any comments that are coming up that are really concerning to you, that are, making you think about it longer than you should, that are making you unsure about your place in the company, definitely talk to your manager and bring that awareness to them because that's not fair and you don't deserve to work in that environment. Also, document everything that you can because if this veers into an illegal territory where there is discrimination, you want to make sure that you have those receipts.
Yeah, and the only thing that I'll add, it's a good thing to kind of place the mindset of long-term goals, especially when it comes to, returning back to work. You obviously have intentions on returning back and hitting the ground running, I'm assuming.
Mhm.
So with that, like talk with your manager after you make the announcement, after you get closer to, because right now, I wouldn't say worry about it, but like it shouldn't be at the forefront of your mind, to be honest. Like you have a long time before you hit maternity leave. And then once you hit maternity leave, you should only be focusing on maternity leave.
Mhm.
Like that's the biggest thing. But set some goals so that when you return back from maternity leave, they can know, hey, she's ready to get back to it.
Mhm.
She has in all intentions of knocking out some things, as soon as she gets back. But prior to maternity leave, make sure that you do things like hand off tasks that you won't be able to complete, and notify everybody that, hey, I'm going on maternity leave, but like if need be, this is how you can contact me.
Right. Communication is key. I'll add to that too. I would speak with your manager and make sure that you are very clear what the top three things are that are important to your job that you should be working on, especially, as you ramp up towards maternity leave. And then when you come back, if you can set those goals and make it very clear that you're working on this is your priority, and you accomplish it, that shows that you're dedicated to the job. You're still there. You're still doing what is expected of you. Get that in writing from management and quiet all the loud voices around you. If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, nobody should be questioning that. That's not fair.
Also, one more thing. If you choose not to return, that's up to you. Because at the end of the day, you're supposed to put yourself forward, regardless of what everybody thinks. So if at the end of maternity leave you figure out, hey, this just doesn't work for me, your husband gets another job or whatever the case might be, you guys figure it out. But that's up to you. Don't shame yourself for taking a direction that benefits you and your family.
Facts. All right, story number two. This one's fun. It's not fun, but it's more finance and couples, which I think we have a lot to add on. We haven't really talked about our fluctuations in our relationship with pay. I know that when we first started dating, I was in college, you were in the military, so you had a paycheck. I barely had any money. So you fronted the bills, the dates for the beginning. But then by the time we moved in together, you were actually unemployed and we
Right.
were paying our rent on my cocktail waitress salary, total 180. And then eventually, once you got your full time job, you started making a salary. And then I graduated college and I started following following behind you, but you were actually out earning me for
Yep,
quite a while
for
there.
pretty much most of the time that we were in the public workforce up
hmm
until
I found out I was underpaid.
up until those last few months. Yeah.
Yep, I found out I was underpaid, and then I passed you by like $4,000,
Yeah.
and then we did this, and we both started at zero again.
Right, right.
And now it's basically like this is our pot, even though I make more than you. Technically, on paper, we share everything. We've just gone through the gauntlet with managing our finances, talking about finances, and I think we've navigated that really, really well. So I think this is interesting because we have so much to share. And if you have any financial concerns with your partner, be sure to submit your story as well, and we can react to yours next. All right, so let's kick it off. I've been officially dating my boyfriend for about 2 months, with about a month of dating before that. So basically 3 months. We've had some casual conversations about money, and he's been really transparent. He owns a condo, works in education, earning about $55,000 a year, plus an extra $10,000 in the summer. He saves aggressively, has no debt beyond his mortgage, and is overall super financially disciplined. Like, he limits eating out to once a week and listens to money podcasts. I really like him and see long term potential, which makes me start thinking about how and when to bring up my financial situation. I'm also pretty solid. I make around double his total comp in accounting, $115,000 a year. I max my Roth IRA, contribute to my 401k, and don't carry any debt besides my mortgage. I do spend more, especially on things like food and socializing, and while my lifestyle has inflated a bit recently, it's been very intentional after years of living way below my means. What I'm wrestling with now is how and when to have a deeper money conversation in a relationship that still feels new. I don't want it to come off transactional or overwhelming. I love charts, spreadsheets, and numbers, classic accountant, but I also don't want to drop a financial PowerPoint too early on and scare him off. I've seen friends get weird when I mention my savings or investing habits, and I don't want that to happen here. So my questions are, when did you bring up money seriously into your relationships? How did you approach it in a way that felt human and not like a job interview or audit? And if anyone has any tools or templates, spreadsheets they use to help facilitate the convo, I'm all ears.
First off, kudos to both of them
Yes.
for, achieving that, because that's very difficult in today's, society, especially with, everybody living paycheck to paycheck, everybody looking for jobs, layoffs and all of that. So kudos to them.
They also sound like they're very financially responsible, both of them, even though they're in completely different earning buckets.
Yeah, yeah. My answer to that would be whenever it feels comfortable to you. I know that every relationship moves at a different pace. We moved pretty quickly, I like to think. I think that we didn't actually start having those real financial conversations until we moved in together. And that was like the time where we figured we're living together, so we might as well understand each other's finances.
And I would say that we should have had those conversations earlier. I think it was just a matter of trust between the two of us, but
Right.
I wouldn't recommend that to anybody listening because that could have gone wrong real quick, real fast. Trust isn't enough, especially in a really young relationship. And we were still very young in our relationship when we did move in together. I think it was less than a year that we had been together.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was really a trust fall between the two of us. But I would say that, like you said, have the conversation when you're comfortable. It sounds like you both are very financially responsible. Like you said, the person that she's dating listens to money podcasts. That actually is such a green flag. And I think that they should have that conversation sooner rather than later.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
doesn't
definitely.
sound like he would be against it.
You guys can exchange ideas and learnings.
Yeah.
You both are pretty much like on the right track to retire at a great age
hmm
with a lot of wealth behind you. So why not build together now? At the end of the day, you're not, springing on him a bunch of debt that you have. You're
You're
not
not sharing, bank accounts.
right. You're not trying to take any money from him, or he's not trying to take any money from you. You both are good on your own. So exchanging that information may benefit both of you.
Right, because financial transparency isn't about, I'm trying to see how much money you have in your pockets so I can take it. It's a matter of respect. I think we need more financial transparency, not just in our relationships, but also our friendships, because how many people listening have had an issue where, the bill comes back to the table and you only had the salad and your friend had the steak? It's really uncomfortable to talk about, like, hey, can we split this accurately? But you can really avoid those conversations if you are transparent with your friends or your date and tell them, I'm on a budget. I only make this much and I have these goals. You don't even have to tell them how much you make. You can tell them I'm on a budget because I'm trying to reach this financial goal. A true friend and a true partner will support those goals. They wouldn't let you backtrack on those goals because of stake, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's a really good litmus test of making sure you have the right people around you. But if I were her, I would lead with transparency and that communication. Like she said, she's an accountant. She loves spreadsheets. She sounds like kind of like me. She loves a good chart. I would tell him, hey, I'm an accountant. So this is how I communicate. This is how I understand numbers. I'm very fascinated with finances because of my profession. And I also have all these goals. I recognize that you are too. You listen to this podcast, you listen to this. We're very much in line. And then I would say, if you're comfortable with this possibly getting serious, I would tell them, I see great potential to grow with you, and I feel comfortable having a conversation about our finances because I think we can grow together. And then talk about what you think that is. I think it's a show of mutual respect that you want to make sure that you're not letting him fall out of his lifestyle and also helping him achieve your goals. Make sure you're on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, because for the most part, it seems like they're already pretty good with the transparency between one another. The fact that she knows how much he makes, that he has a savings account, that he owns his condo, and the fact that he knows the same about you, you guys have already laid the groundwork to begin this conversation.
Mhm.
So now just have the conversation.
Yeah, I would also try to do it on mutual ground. So don't do it at his condo, don't do it at your house. Go get dinner or go to a Capital One Cafe. And that's not a plug, that was completely out my brain, but this is actually a really great environment to have that conversation. You can reserve a nook so that you have privacy. There's also money and life advisors around here that will give you free advice on your finances. They're there to help you. They are ambassadors. So you can have conversations with them about anything that comes up, but go to a place where nobody has the upper hand. It's neutral territory.
Agreed.
All right, let's go on to the next one. That was fun. All right, story number 2. My 30-year-old boyfriend broke up with me because I wouldn't give him $1,000. A few months ago, I got the opportunity of a lifetime. For a year and a half, I'm going to be making six figures, but after that, we'll go back to making likely around $50,000. I have a child with a lot of expenses, and I'm usually barely able to keep my head above water with what I make. I can finally start to build a bit of savings. My boyfriend is a type of artist. I have questions about that. Over a year ago, I bought him some very expensive equipment. He was supposed to be moving in with me a few months ago, but decided to move several states away for an important opportunity instead. Since moving out there, he has been blowing through around $2,500 a month with no real income. I know that things are expensive for him, but a good chunk of his money is also spent on cigarettes, alcohol, and gardening. I know it's very stressful for him out there, but it drives me crazy how he's obviously not taking care of himself and getting even more stressed out financially because he's pretty out of control. His savings are getting pretty low, and he's been asking me for $1,000. We've been fighting a lot, so a lot of the times that he asks, it's not in a very nice way. Yesterday, he admitted to me that even if he got a job, he wouldn't be making enough for it to be sustainable out there. So today, when he asked me yet again, I told him no. I said he should come and stay with me and quit his addictions so he can go back down there when he's in a better place. I said if I gave him $1,000 now, what about in 2 weeks when that runs out? He got pissed at me and said it's easy for me to make 1,000 and that I'm being selfish about him and don't care. And if he didn't feel stressed financially, he wouldn't be spending so much, but he's been doing it the whole time. He ended up blocking me and told me never to reach out to him once he becomes successful. Ew. Then I saw online he's selling the equipment I bought him last year. It tugged at my heartstrings. I was hoping he would be motivated to get it together, but instead he's selling the thing he really loves. I tried to reach out to him to tell him I'd give him the money. Why? But he hung up on me. I was about to send it anyway. Then I see that it looks like he's talking to a new girl already. So I found a way to contact him and told him how I feel, but he's basically just insisting I'm selfish and he doesn't even want the money anymore. Basically, I'm just feeling really hurt and upset and misunderstood, not really sure how to wrap my mind around this. Your boy's a loser.
Yeah, I'm sorry to you. Like you got in a bad situation. It's a
Thank
good thing
God you
that
got out.
yeah, it's a good thing that you're out of it now. Don't talk to that dude. So I don't know if you guys heard in one of our previous episodes, but the way that I look at finances now is that if I lend out money, it's money that I am no longer anticipating on receiving back.
Right.
It's money that I won't miss. For you, it sounds like that's a lot of money and you're definitely going to miss that. But on his end, it seems as though he's just living the lifestyle of a young guy, a young bachelor. So by all means, it seems as though he was more so using you more than anything.
I would agree with that. It does sound like he just doesn't have his priorities in check, which he's 30, 31 years old. I would expect him to have a better sense of finances and what his financial goals are. It clearly sounds like y'all were not on the same page. In my opinion, a good partner would recognize that the money means a lot to you. And I wouldn't see it as something to, oh, I want my share of the pot too. I would understand that my partner has a child
A
with
child.
expensive needs and that is going towards the child. I would be excited for my partner to make that money, save it up, and really create a nest egg and grow with that partner. If your partner is instead upset that you're making more and not sharing it, especially when you know what that money that they would use it for is going to go to, it sounds like she's kind of lying to herself and hoping that he would use it for the right reasons, but it's clear that she knows what he's going to use it for. I just think that that would be a big waste of your money and clearly shows he doesn't care about you or the relationship.
Yeah.
Finances say a lot.
Yeah. And the fact that like he's blowing through his savings, like,
What a child.
yeah, that's completely up to him. Obviously, you were struggling before this, and now that you have the opportunity to make some more money for you and your child, he sees that as an opportunity to put his hand in the pot. That's not a good guy. Not at all.
Sounds like you dodged a bullet to
Yeah,
me.
honestly.
Yeah, I know it's going to hurt. Relationships and breakups are always hard, but in retrospect, I think you'll see that you dodged a major bullet here, and that being in a relationship with somebody who is like minded in financial goals, financial achievements, and savings is one of the most important things out there. We all know that money is the driving reason for divorces. So, y'all were already heading there, and you're not even married yet.
Also, kudos to you for doing the things that you did to help invest in his dream. That doesn't happen a lot, but I feel as though you did your part and he didn't do his.
Yeah, absolutely. It shows that you are capable of sharing with a partner and that you want to grow with a partner, but sometimes that person's just not it. Finding somebody that you align with financially is one of the hardest things out there, but the most important for a successful relationship.
Yeah, because it's easy to like people. Like attraction is face deep,
Mhm.
literally. So it's one thing to be attracted to somebody, it's another thing to be matched with somebody.
It's another thing to share a complete bank account with them.
Yeah.
And so you got to make sure that you're aligned there. But with that, relationships and finances are such an intriguing topic. It's so nuanced, it's personal to everyone, and I would love to share our 2 cents based on our own experiences with that. So if you have a story that you want to share with us as well, be sure to drop it in the form that we're going to have in the description below. We'd love to do more episodes like this, maybe even an extra episode a week where we just respond to questions.
Yeah, we could definitely do that. If you guys want to ask us questions, definitely drop them below. We do read them. We do pay attention to all of this stuff. So
We really do. But that's all from us. Quick shout out to our sponsor, Capital One Café, a great place to have conversations with your significant other about finances. But if you want to go by yourself or with a partner, we have a free coupon that you can use to redeem a beverage at a Capital One Café. Whether you want something caffeinated like a latte or a lemonade, whatever your taste buds prefer, Capital One Café has something for you.
and with that, thank you guys for listening to the podcast.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.